as well as on actual parade day. Refreshment arrangements will be available at parade venue and you are requested not to bring eatables. In case of inclement weather, announcement for the cancellation of parade will be made on radio and television at 6:30 a.m. on 23rd March. Your cooperation shall be highly anticipated and inconvenience is regretted, please. Thank you.
Prime Minister Imran Khan tests positive for COVID-19 and he is in self-isolation at home. Special Assistant on Health Services Dr. Faisal Sultan, while talking to PTV News, says Prime Minister Imran Khan's health is stable now and will recover soon. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi extends best wishes to Prime Minister Imran Khan for speedy recovery from COVID. Special Assistant to Prime Minister Dr. Faisal Sultan warns that coronavirus situation is alarming in country as the positivity rate has sharply risen to 9.5% in recent days. An anti-terrorism court in Lahore sentences Abid Malli and Shafqat Ali to death for gang raping a woman on the Lahore-Sialkot motorway in September last year. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and his Indian counterpart Rajnath Singh meet in New Delhi to discuss defense ties between the two nations, especially on information sharing and logistics. Pakistan's Aleem Dar entered the record books as he became the first umpire ever to officiate 400 international games. But that's all for the moment. For more details and live streaming, log on to our website world.ptv.com.pk. You can find us on Facebook page with the name of PTV World and follow us on Twitter at WorldPTV. Thanks a lot for watching and it's goodbye for now.
The ancient city of Taxila is the heart of stonework in Pakistan. This art, which has been preserved and practiced for centuries, can be seen on many major landmarks of the country. Notably, the Pietra Dura work in the Lahore Fort's Sheesh Mahal. These stone products take days to complete and require immense precision and skill from the craftsmen. The final products are perfect for souvenirs, gifts and decoration pieces. each depicting the richness of Pakistani culture at its best. Camel skin and ivory craft are trademarks of Multan's handicraft repertoire. Camel skin is cleaned, dried and mounted onto molds which can be of any shape desired. Multicolored lacquer painting is then used to ornament the molds, which in the end bear a Mughal or Persian feel. Ivory is crafted into pens, chess sets, jewelry and other accessories such as keychains by the expert craftsman. Such detailed work, while being extravagant, is indeed a feat to achieve, and craftsmen of Multan produce beauty with their work which is worthy of global admiration. The enchanting arts and crafts of Pakistan.
The Badshai Mosque or the Royal Mosque in Lahore, commissioned by the 6th Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb in 1671 and completed in 1673, is the second largest mosque in Pakistan and South Asia and the 5th largest mosque in the world. Epitomizing the beauty, passion and grandeur of the Mughal era. It is Lahore's most famous landmark and a major tourist attraction. Capable of accommodating 5,000 worshippers in its main prayer hall and a further 95,000 in its courtyard, it remains the largest mosque in the world. From 1673 to 1986, a period of 313 years, when overtaken in size by the completion of the Faisal Mosque in Islamabad. Today, it remains the second largest mosque in Pakistan and South Asia and the fifth largest mosque in the world after Masjid al-Haram, Grand Mosque of Mecca, and Al-Masjid al-Nabwi, Prophet's Mosque in Medina. The Hassan II Mosque in Casablanca and the Faisal Mosque in Islamabad. To appreciate its large size, the four minarets of the Badshai Mosque are 13.9 feet, 4.2 meters taller than those of the Taj Mahal, and the main platform of the Taj Mahal can fit inside the 278,784 square feet courtyard of the Badshai Mosque, which is the largest mosque courtyard in the world. Architectural wonders of Pakistan.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about the third wave of the COVID-19 which has hit now and Pakistan seems to be in the midst of that. The current symptoms seem to be slightly different. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the effect. Of course, the Prime Minister has also tested positive for COVID and the First Lady today, and considering the spike in numbers at this time, are we prepared? How socially responsible is Pakistan being at this time, considering that of course there is also some level of people are done with trying to do what they can in terms of taking care with the first two waves, but this strain also is slightly different, which is what the experts are saying. How different and what are some of the effects of this strain particularly? We'll be talking about all of that today on Perspective. I have with me Dr. Rana Jawad Askar, who's an epidemiologist, and we'll be talking to him in detail about what the third wave means. Dr. Rana, how do you differentiate between this third wave and what had happened earlier, particularly since a lot is being said about how it's more lethal, how it's also affecting children, things like that. What can you tell us about it?
Thank you very much for inviting me in your program. One thing what we have learned from this coronavirus, and as you know, it is a fairly new disease, that in different countries it comes in periodicity. Like it goes up and then comes down and it stays down for a while and then goes up, and that's what we call it, the wave phenomena. So what happens is that, and many times these waves happen at the different parts of the same country. It does not mean that whole of the country will go into that wave at this moment. So in having that context clear, our second wave was not a good-looking wave because it never came down as the first wave, the numbers came down to in a few hundreds. If you remember, like the second wave, even when it was the lowest numbers, these were around 1,000 to 1,500 numbers, and they stayed for quite a long time. And that
this is the second wave you're talking about.
Sorry?
This is the second wave you were talking about.
Second wave.
Okay.
So for the third wave, it was much easier because it was not starting from a zero virus, or there are very few virus or 100 virus infected patients, but it had up to 1,500 patients on a daily basis to start with, and that's how what we have seen, how quickly it has gone up, especially in Islamabad, where it has gone from just like 200 cases or 100 cases per day to now more than 700 cases today. Case positivity has been increasing again over 5 to 6 weeks, and now pretty much all the big cities of Pakistan, including Lahore, Faisalabad, Islamabad, Rawalpindi, are showing positivity rates which are as high as they were in the first wave. In second wave, we didn't get that high level of case positivity numbers. Now, for example, today, Lahore has more than 18% of case positivity. Faisalabad has, I think, 20%, and same, and Islamabad and Rawalpindi are around 10% case positivity. These are very high case positivities. Just thinking about Islamabad was like 1.5% case positivity just like 6 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago. So that's the third week. Its cases are going up at a steep curve. They are not going up slowly and steadily. They are moving up to the steep curve. And the numbers are in Islamabad for me are actually act as a reference point for Pakistan, because Islamabad tests most per capita as compared to any other city in Pakistan. So what trend it shows means they are the real trend of the whole of the country.
And you think that in terms of, you're saying of course the numbers are at an unprecedented high for the third wave at this time, if we compare it to the first two waves. So in terms of lockdown, in terms of restrictions, why are we not going for perhaps stricter, complete lockdown at this time? If like you are saying, the numbers, if you compare it to the first and the second wave at this time, are higher than those that were there during the first two waves.
So actually, if you compare it on the first wave in the month of March, when we are having the same phenomena, our daily numbers were very much lower than what we have. But at that time, disease was starting; it was being introduced in the country, so low numbers were expected. In the second wave, we didn't get that level of high daily case numbers. So actually, today's case numbers are, I think, the highest after July 2020. So these are pretty high numbers, and they are still rising. The issue is they are still rising at a very dangerous angle or very steep curve. They are just going like this up. So we need to be very careful. The question of lockdown is, this is a controversial issue. Definitely, lockdown helps to bring down the transmission rate. There are no doubts about it. But we have to think and act according to our own ground realities. Majority of Pakistani population.
Do you think it's about? Do you think it's also about the fact that now vaccination process is also started, and people feel that there is, of course, when the first dosage, the second dosage, of course, it's going on according to age and all that. Do you think that perhaps that's one of the reasons we're not moving towards perhaps a stricter lockdown or what we call a complete lockdown?
The cost, the economic cost to the poor of any lockdown is much higher, and the decision makers have to take and think about it very seriously, that how they are going to make sure that those people have food in their homes, because they earn, most of our laborers earn on a daily wage. So if they don't work for like 2-3 days, and let's say a week, pretty much all the savings of their house are gone. So we have to decide about. But what we can do now, which we should have done earlier, was to curtail activities outside the house which are unnecessary. Going to the, for just shopping, just going to restaurant, inside dining was very risky. We knew about it. We knew long time from now that we need cross ventilation in rooms or offices and spaces. We ignored that. We knew that masks are very helpful and life-saving and bring down the transmission rate down. We ignored it. I think less than 5% people were wearing it. So all these things which should be done first, done well, and only then if you can't do or can't, bring down the transmission rates, then you go for a drastic measure.
But Doctor, with due respect, we are not curtailing. I mean, you talk about needless activities. If you look at Islamabad at this time, we are, I think, probably at a time when we're just, so tired. I think if you look at the normal, if you look at a normal person who's been at home for so long, who's been so careful, who's tried his level best or her level best to take care in the extreme sense of the word, after the two waves, we're just so tired now. I think psychologically that's also an aspect, and now people just can't, bring themselves to adhere to that level of care anymore. Isn't that true?
So that's true. I'm also working from home for last 1 year. I only go in those meetings where it's absolute necessity for me to be there personally. But most of things I'm doing through Zoom or Skype. But the thing is, like if you are going for work, that's an important job. If you have to earn money, that's an important. But it's also your duty to safeguard your health. If you are a breadwinner, a bread earner of your house, and you do not follow basic SOPs and then get COVID-19, that means you are not only jeopardizing your own health, but your family's well-being. We are all tired. We are all exhausted. My girls are exhausted, and they always complain. But remember, virus has not exhausted.
But what happens with this strain particularly? If you talk about how lethal is it, can you tell us some of the differences you feel with this third strain? It's also called the UK strain.
Yes, but we don't know. Again, in Pakistan, we routinely do not do genetic testing of our coronavirus cases. UK does best of out of whole world, and some other countries have very recently started doing this. Pakistan in this field has, we have. I'm sure we have the capacity, but it's costly and it's not done routinely. The reason we know that it is UK virus or variant is because the health minister of Punjab has made this announcement that they have checked around 300 of the isolates, and they have identified that 75% of those were UK variants. But as an epidemiologist, even without all this genetic testing, I will expect if there is a strain in UK, I will expect it to be in Pakistan also, just because of the amount of travel between Pakistan and UK on a daily basis.
Which brings us again to the point, why have we not had stricter travel restrictions? And I will come back to that. I will come back to that, Dr. Rana. I will come back to that, and we'll discuss more of that. But I'm going to go to Hassan Wasim, who's also a corona virus specialist. Hassan sir, how do you see the fact that this is a particularly lethal strain compared to the first two strains of COVID-19?
Thank you for taking me to the show. One thing is pretty much clear, that this particular strain is much more dangerous than the previous strains. It's pretty much obvious from the data and the numbers that we are seeing on the daily basis. The virus, has been spiked from 3% the last 4 to 5 days. So this is the one pretty much obvious difference that we do not need to decipher, and it is pretty obvious that we have to take steps. And you know what, the basics are pretty much the same, that we the mask, we have to follow the SOPs, the social distancing, it's all the same. Apart from strain, what I personally believe the other reason of this sudden spike is people were perhaps too much optimistic for certain reasons. Perhaps they were thinking that vaccines have now come into the place and the virus spike was going down previously, so perhaps there was too much. They have taken their concern as pretty normal, and due to these reasons, perhaps the lethality or like the spread of the virus has actually caused a havoc. But it's not still too late. I think people should follow the SOPs. They have to wear the mask.
Does this strain affect children also?
Yes, definitely. So this particular strain is different in many sense. I mean, we are seeing different symptoms. People are experiencing
headaches. Can you take us through some of the differences, please?
Yeah, so there are 3 or 4 major differences that the people infected with the previous strains were not experiencing. For example, now we are seeing many people with this viral gastritis that they are actually experiencing diarrhea, then vomiting, headache. So these are some of the new symptoms which scientists still have to deconvolute and understand what actually the virus is doing with the human body.
Right. And other than that, what are some of the other differences?
So other differences.
So I was asking you how it affects children. Is it some limit in terms of under what age of children do we, or all ages need to be careful? Because earlier on with the earlier 2 strains, of course, we heard that they can be carriers, not so much. They cannot get affected themselves. They cannot catch it themselves, but they are generally going to be carriers. Is it the same for this strain, or now they can be affected also?
So this is pretty much apparent from the numbers that this particular people, especially children from the age of 1 to even 10 years old, they are getting the virus.
Right. I will just come back to you, Dr. Hassan. I'm going to go to Faisal Javed Sahab. Senator Faisal Javed, your opinion on the fact that, of course, we're now seeing with the Prime Minister also having tested positive, the situation being what it is, the cases spiking. Why are we not moving towards a stricter lockdown, in your opinion?
Well, I tell you what, the complete lockdown is not an option at all. Because you see, as Prime Minister has been telling before as well, that we simply cannot afford to go for the complete lockdown. It could be very, very dangerous, but you see, we are taking measures, including selective lockdowns. The hotspots will be adopted, as previously was appreciated by the world as well, to sort of stop the spread of corona. Complete lockdown devastates economy and pushes a large segment of our population below poverty line. As you have seen in India, what exactly happened in India, many countries have learned from that mistake, the blunder that India made. So that is a no-go area, you see, and then posing bigger challenges of hunger and survival. So Pakistan cannot go for complete lockdown, but hotspot strategy is good. Identify the hotspots and go for those smart lockdowns. This could be the thing. As you know, when the phase 1 started of corona, people showed a lot of discipline, and then gradually they started taking it very easy. They started shaking hands.
I was just having this whole conversation with Dr. Rana Javed, where I was, asking him exactly that. I said that people just seem to be so exhausted of trying, to follow all the SOPs, of course, I'm in no way saying that we shouldn't be following them, but I'm just saying that psychologically, we are perhaps at a place where, people just feel that they're exhausted of course, the COVID-19 and of following all the SOPs, but in a lot of cases, of course, we don't know where the infection comes from and still getting it. So with that kind of a psychological, a scenario at the back, do you think that the numbers may continue to spike? Because if we are not being careful, then of course the results are not going to be great.
Well, I'm really struggling. I can't hear you at all, but what I'm trying to I think you asked about the carelessness of people. You see, people have to show discipline, because you see, it is up to them. They have to take precautionary measures. Putting masks is a must now. And this phase 3 is pretty dangerous. and it's spreading like anything. Every other person that you know is getting tested positive. So wearing masks is very critical, very important, and through media
What
we
about
really need to
things like weddings? What about functions that are still allowed outside with I think 300 people? Is that also necessary in your opinion?
I can't hear you at all. What I'm
Can you hear me
I
now?
think you asked me about carelessness.
No.
Among
Can you
people.
hear me now?
Hello.
G, can you hear me?
Hello.
I think we'll try to connect again.
Hello.
I think we'll try to connect again. Gee, Dr. Rana, do you think, I was going to ask Senator Faisal this also, that do you think that the kind, of course he said that as an economy, the third world country that we are, the situation being what it is, we cannot go for a complete lockdown. Do you think that in this kind of a scenario where numbers continue to spike, we need to have weddings, we need to have the 300 numbers, people allowed to come out and have outdoor functions? Are those also necessities in your opinion?
A patient comes to me and if they have a diabetes or blood sugar, we advise them to act responsible. We prescribe them on the first defensive or a low level of medication, and if the person takes the medicines, takes care, then we don't need to go to the drastic or ultimate solution of badly managed diabetes, which in sometimes is actually amputation. So that's the point I'm trying to make is, why not let's first enforce SOPs fully, which are not being enforced at all. Schools were open until yesterday. Even though our cases were rising up, our markets were not being, SOPs are not being followed. Why can't we first ensure that for at least a week's time, the government with its full might ensure that, even though the businesses are open as per SOPs, and everyone else who is in the public is following those SOPs, and let's see then how the cases number goes up or down. Problem is that the lockdown is a very effective measure to bring down the transmission. There is no question about it, but it will also push a lot of people or majority of population in Pakistan in a very bad, daily. Why not we try first those measures?
Do you think that we need to, like you are saying, we need to go and work towards implementation? We need to ensure that SOPs are being followed. We need to ensure that the maximum number of people that the government has said are, getting together, it's not more. We need to ensure that the markets are also opening, closing at the right time. Restaurants, all of those restrictions are being followed, and that perhaps is the only way forward.
Very true. And start with the government's own offices. And I know that, mask wearing is not universal, and even sometimes 5 or 10%, even in the government offices. So if we can't implement those SOPs in our own offices, then expecting general public to follow our SOPs is a difficult task. So start from the top and then go and ensure that on the street in any public area, this is being followed. We tried pretty good in our first wave. SOPs were followed to a pretty much, I would say, good level. It was not 100%, but at least in some cities like Islamabad, there were shops followed SOPs. You couldn't enter a shop without a mask, and there was a limited number of people who can enter any shop.
Right, Dr. Rana, I will come back to you. I'm going to go to Dr. Yasmin Rashid, who has just joined us. Dr. Saiba, can you tell us a little bit about the SOPs at this time in terms of the restrictions that are being imposed, particularly in Punjab? Things are, at an alert. The numbers are rising. What is the situation at this time?
Well, we are in the third wave of corona, that everybody knows, and the number of cases are rising every day, and we were near 2,000 mark today in Punjab, which is the highest that we've had before, compared to the previous wave. Because of that, very strict measures have been taken. You know, a couple week ago, we have closed all the colleges, all the teaching institutions all over in the major cities where we have maximum number of corona patients, like Lahore, Gujarat, Gujranwala, Rawalpindi, Faisalabad, and Multan. But now, where the SOPs are concerned, we are trying our level best to ensure that people follow the SOPs. Like, for example, all the markets close down at 6 o'clock in the evening. All the markets are closed for Saturday, Sunday. We have asked that all parks close down at 6 o'clock. Along with that, we have also ensured that there's 50% of attendance in all the government sector, so that people are minimally exposed. Along with that, we have started a very aggressive vaccination drive, because the only way you can reduce the number of patients is, number one is of course prevention through proper SOPs being practiced, and secondly, vaccination, particularly of the older population, the ones which are at maximum risk. So we have started off between the ages of 60 above. 70s years, people are all allowed to walk in to various centers, even if they're not.
Dr. Yasmin, in terms of the vaccination, you know, there are a lot of theories, there is a lot of things that is going on, there's a lot being said about the vaccinations also. You know, are you getting the kind of response that you would like in terms of citizens coming to get vaccinated?
Well, frankly speaking, I think once a good word came out, particularly from the Expo Center, it has really, you know, created quite a bit of waves. We got a very positive response from the public once we started hearing good things about Expo Center. And we had to go through 2 days of a lot of rush, so we had to open up the second hall also. Now things are more controlled. And alhamdulillah, over the last 9 days, we have vaccinated more than 88,000 senior citizens. And from tomorrow onwards, we would also be permitting them to walk in after the age of 65, because the federal government is procuring its own vaccines. We've been sent a good number of vaccines now to continue our vaccination program. And the health workers are also being vaccinated. About 40,000 people have already, from the healthcare workers, have received the second dose. And another 1,18,000 have received their first dose. We have sent the required vaccines to all the hospitals now, so that
Dr. Yasmin, do you think that in terms of awareness, perhaps there needs to be a more aggressive awareness campaign with regard to the vaccination also? So there's all these theories that are going around about the vaccination. You know, people can be given the accurate picture of what the vaccination means, and you know, the issue of the side effects, the genuineness of it.
People are quite well aware about vaccination now, because there's a constant demand, and people are. If you come and look at Expo Center, which is a huge premise, there are normally people walking in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they continue coming in late in the evening, which means now people are quite well aware about it. The next program that we're making is all those people who are bedridden and cannot reach our centers. We are going to make their lists also. We are going to ask them to apply. And with the new vaccine Consino, which is a single dose which is coming in, we are planning that the single jab will be given to those people who are at home and cannot make it to the center. We are organizing a proper ambulance service for them, so that they don't have to take the trouble of coming to the center. So we are trying our level best. I think with all the awareness which is being created by the media now regarding vaccination.
Dr. Yasmin, there's a lot of, you know, of course the Prime Minister had his first dosage a couple of days ago, and now he's corona positive. Can you tell us a little bit about the fact that it takes, of course, he needs to have had the second dosage, and there's a 21-day period. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, frankly speaking, where corona, number one, you have to understand that the incubation period of coronavirus is concerned is from 2 days to 14 days. And probably Imran Khan Sahib was in between that incubation period when he received this, which means the symptoms had not come forward. He had I think he just had a mild cough. And he had this vaccination because he wanted to set up an example for the public that this vaccine is safe and there's nothing to worry about it. However, he developed a fever the next day, and Faisal Sultan Sahab, who actually went and saw him, thought it as a reaction of the vaccine because some people do run a mild fever. It's just the next day when the fever continued. Along with that, his cough also, he was a little symptomatic with his cough. They thought it was appropriate to test him for COVID. This came out positive. So this sort of thing can happen. Like, for example, somebody catches an infection and it takes 2 days for the symptoms to manifest themselves. In some people, it might take about 14 days to manifest, which is the latest. But under normal circumstances, what you see is that they normally manifest them on the 7th or 8th day. And Khan Sahib has been going through a lot of public activity, although he's been trying his level best to take precautions. But end of the day, he got the infection.
Right, of course. What about implementation? Because, you know, I was talking to Dr. Rana Javed also, Rana Jawad Askar also, and he was also, you know, saying that perhaps it is a time where stricter implementation of all the restrictions that you have set down and restrictions that are, of course, supposed to be enforced in the capital also needs to be made, because, you know, there is a psychological aspect of how people are just exhausted trying to follow that.
Frankly speaking, it's very easy to say things. Right. It's very difficult to implement. You can't go around shutting people into jails or prisons just because they're not following or fining them. The only way you can talk to the public is request them again and again that they should follow SOPs, which we do all the time. And we are constantly trying our level best, using the media, using radios, telling everybody that they should be wearing a mask. I think now it's like it's a repetition that we do every day.
So, Dr. Yasmin, you are still, I mean, you've still allowed functions and weddings of 300 people. Do you think that that's essential at this time?
See, the thing is that this is all how it is done by the NCOC. The National Command and Control, they see all the statistics, they take decisions, and we implement them. So the question would be more appropriate to ask anybody from the NCOC.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit how this strain has affected children also, and what ages? Because, you know, I've been trying to ask that question, but somehow it's always, you know, gets...
at least at the moment, I have not had a great... I think because Children's Hospital is our main hospital in Lahore. Lahore seems to be an epicenter at the moment, and we have a large number of patients coming in from Lahore. I've still not had a lot of patients, children being admitted. I'll be talking to Masood Sadiq tomorrow morning to find out the exact data. I can't give you the data unless I know about it. However,
but of course it does affect children. But it does affect children. That's how it's different from the other strains.
It affects them in different ways. They become carriers. Normally they don't show any symptoms. But we don't know how the UK variant is going to behave, because at the moment this third wave that we had is because of the UK variant, because we tested about 300 people who were positive for it and did their gene sequencing. And 70% of them were carrying the UK variant. So,
which of course goes back to the fact that perhaps we should have had stricter travel restrictions, but again, that's not your decision. And like you said, that's the NCOC or...
You see, because everybody sits together in a meeting in the morning every day, in which all the data is discussed and then decisions are taken. We must understand that you need to work to ensure that the economy keeps on moving also. Otherwise, there's a huge problem now at the moment. When you close down things, people lose their jobs, and then of course you go into a vicious circle. Either you die from the virus, or you are going to die from hunger. So all these things have to be taken into consideration, and therefore what things can be open, particularly where open places are concerned, is believed that there would be less of a spread as compared to closed spaces. So all closed spaces, activities have been closed, have been stopped. And so hopefully, whatever instructions, again, there's a very important meeting on Monday, and some important decisions will be taken then about how are we going to go forward with this huge surge.
Right. I've just a quick question. Dr. Yasmin, can you tell us a little bit about how lethal this strain is?
No, where the virulence of this strain is concerned, it seems to be quite similar to the Wuhan virus. The only difference between this virus and Wuhan is that its infectivity rate is comparatively much higher than what we saw in the Wuhan virus. If there are about 10 people in a room and 2 get infected, in case of Wuhan virus, in case of the British variant, 6 to 7 of them get infected immediately. So that's the worst part of it. The number of people getting infected, if that increases, then the 2% of people who become serious and the disease can prove fatal for them, naturally that number is going to increase also.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time. Right. Dr. Rana, I hope that you heard what Dr. Yasmin was saying. The fact that this, more people, according to her, if there are 10 people in a room, 6 or 7 will likely get infected. That's clearly alarming. So in that kind of a scenario, how do you see the next, do you think that it's likely to get worse before it gets better?
This is all in our hands. The UK variant is around 65% more infectious, and we knew this for many months now. It's not a new news for us. But the issue is, and according to recent papers or studies, it has potential to be more lethal also, so more dangerous also. But that has been proven in labs, not in the field studies yet. But the potential of being, we know for sure it's more infectious, but its potential to be more lethal is also there. The question is that just plain simply means that whatever our SOPs were, we need to implement them 65% more effectively. Implementation is the government's job, and that's the responsibility. And if we can't, we implement a lot of other laws also. So, but this is like the law of our life and death. So we should be very serious, making sure that all the resources we have, using them and working with the communities. I'm not saying, go against the community wishes, working with them, come up with unified and agreeable and practical SOPs for that community. But let's implement them. Wearing a mask while in public is not a big major science, can reduce transmission rate dramatically. This is a simple measure, and the mask costs like 10 rupees, or people can make a mask at home also. I don't know how difficult it is. How difficult
do you think that we
are
getting, of course, Dr. Yasmin was saying that in terms of the response to the vaccination, there's numbers are increasing, and there are people are now taking it seriously. They are going and getting vaccinated. If we allow for perhaps a month or 2 months time, how long do you think it will take for this process if you look at the large chunk of the population?
So the vaccination process is very long, and if we just think about our vulnerable population, which is everyone who is above 65, that's 4% of our population. And if we do just plain math, that means translating to 8 million vulnerable people whose age is above 65 years. How many vaccinated we have at this moment administered? They are in hundreds and thousands, much less than even 500,000 doses in last 1 month. The question is, it's important that we vaccinate everyone, and that's why I'm recommending everyone who get access to vaccine, get vaccinated. But thinking about the population of our country, which is more than 200 million, and the resources we have, and the vaccine, to procure the vaccine, to actually make sure that you can administer it, is a long process. I don't see that we would be able to vaccinate a major chunk of our population even by the end of the year. So until that time happens, all of us, the only vaccine is available to us is to follow SOPs. Simple SOPs, they are not difficult, they are not going to cost you anything, they are not even inconvenient too much. Just opening your doors and windows, making sure the crosshair, there is a crosshair in your offices. That's not a big difficult thing or modification to do. So
how long do you think, if we look at history, how long do these kind of pandemics last usually? Is there a pattern, or it's just depends?
So the historical evidence is the pandemic, the major pandemic of 1918, But remember, at that time, we didn't have that much travel. The population around the world was very small. It was still living in isolated communities, which never used to mix up. So it took nearly 2 to 3 years to get the, let's say, the massive burn it had to go through it. But these are the new viruses and the new world. So we do not have a precedent to fall on, historical precedent in similar environment, how long it will last. But one thing is certain, it's not going to be short time period. And we have a good example of Brazil, especially one of their city which was devastated by coronavirus in the first wave, and later surveillance surveys estimated that 75% population has already been infected, so hopefully immune and protected for the next wave. But in this third wave, what we have seen that Brazil has got a really huge spike, even in that city where supposedly it should not have touched it because 75% population was already infected in the first wave. So these are new things which we are learning about this virus, and you know, you have raised this issue that everyone is tired following SOPs, and I fully agree. I am one of those. I want to go to my friends, meet my friends, but remember, virus has not get tired. It is not exhausted. Actually, just this week, Australian has reported a new variant, which is even difficult to, which will be able to mostly confuse or evade our vaccination drives, major vaccination drives. Some variants are difficult to identify on even PCR tests. The hardcore test to identify. So person is
in terms of, I want to go and discuss. I'll come back to you. I'm going to go to Hassan Wasim. Dr. Hassan Wasim, do you think? I mean, in terms of detection, also, there's a lot that is being said about how it doesn't really show up on tests. What can you tell us about that?
Can you repeat your question again?
I'm saying there's a lot that is being said about detection and the fact that this strain doesn't really show up on tests.
So I tend to disagree with it. There is a technical capability that many of the Pakistani laboratories do not yet have, but the virus can easily be detected, even the subvariant strains. That is why many of the laboratories in Pakistan are still able to validate that this particular virus is actually the UK strain. And before continuing it, I would also like to add a bit about the awareness campaigns, the need of the awareness campaigns that you are asking to Dr. Yasmin Rashid previously. And I tend to humbly disagree with the Honorable Minister that people are fully aware about the usefulness of the vaccines. I personally think that many different conspiracy theories and fake news is being circulated on social media, WhatsApp, Facebook. So we as a society have to debunk those fake news in order to in order to convince the general public to get out of their homes and get the vaccination done.
Yes.
And in this particular scenario, every segment of the society has to play their role, whether it be the academia like the professors or like the doctors, media outlet like yours. So very true. I completely agree. Thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Dr. Rana Jabad, thank you for being with us today. Hassan Wasim Saab, thank you for joining us. Dr. Yasmin Rashid, thank you for being with us. As far as, of course, I mean, there's no other way to look at it. The fact is that it's here. The fact is it's lethal. The fact is that it's likely out of 10 people in a room, 6 or 7 are likely to catch it. And the fact is we don't know when it's going away. So there is no other way except to follow the SOPs, to take as much care as possible so that you, I, our loved ones, everyone, our people at home, around us can all be safe. We all have a responsibility. And I also want to add that regarding the vaccination, it is all of us must try to get vaccinated. We must try to put forward the truth, and needless propaganda surrounding the vaccination needs to end. We all need to act responsible and do our duty as responsible citizens, follow the SOPs and go and make sure that whoever is within that age bracket at this time is getting vaccinated. Let's hope that we can all do that. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.
ancient city of Taxila is the heart of stonework in Pakistan. This art, which has been preserved and practiced for centuries, can be seen on many major landmarks of the country. Notably, the Pietra Dura work in the Lahore Fort's Sheesh Mahal. These stone products take days to complete and require immense precision and skill from the craftsmen. The final products are perfect for souvenirs, gifts and decoration pieces, each depicting the richness of Pakistani culture at its best. Camel skin and ivory craft are trademarks of Multan's handicraft repertoire. Camel skin is cleaned, dried and mounted onto molds which can be of any shape desired. Multicolored lacquer painting is then used to ornament the molds, which in the end bear a Mughal or Persian feel. Ivory is crafted into pens, chess sets, jewelry and other accessories such as keychains by the expert craftsmen. Such detailed work, while being extravagant, is indeed a feat to achieve, and craftsmen of Multan produce beauty with their work which is worthy of global admiration. The enchanting arts and crafts of Pakistan.